everyone, I'm Jen. I work at the local community food center. I'm the manager of food logistics, and today you're in my kitchen. I have lots of experience cooking. I'm not a chef. I'm a nutritionist, so I know a little bit about all kinds of food. Today we're making nachos. Pretty simple. All you need is a baking sheet, and I've lined it with tin foil so that the nachos don't stick. The cheese doesn't stick because you don't want a big mess to clean up at the end. A frying pan for your meat and just a good cutting board. I've got my cutting board sitting on a towel so it doesn't slide around, which is important for safety. A pretty good knife and a cheese grater, unless you buy the pre-shredded cheese. And then just our toppings for our nachos and whatever you'd like. So in your food kit, I've included tomatoes and peppers and onions, a lime, and the cheese and black beans. Feel free to use whatever you'd like, whatever your family prefers. So first we need to start with our pork. So I've given you all a pound of ground pork and the seasoning blend, which is a chorizo spice blend. I put my pork into the bowl, and we want to get the seasoning mixed in really well before we add it into the pan. So I've got a big batch of it here, so I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons, and that's what I've included in the kit for you. So you can go ahead and add all of the spices, and it's not spicy, it's more like a smoky kind of mild chorizo flavor. So what I like to do is really get my hands in there and mix it up really well with my hands. And whenever you're cooking with raw meat, you want to make sure you wash everything really well afterwards, because you don't want to cross-contaminate. Ground meat especially can really harbor kind of nasty bacteria that can spread. So that's why you also want to pay attention to the temperature that you cook your meat to, just so that it kills off any potential pathogens. And if you get your meat out on a cutting board, you want to make sure that you clean your cutting board really well before you cut up your raw vegetables. So that looks well blended to me. I'm just going to go wash my hands, and then we're going to pop it into the frying pan with our onions. I've got a white onion here to chop up. When you're chopping up vegetables, you want to make sure that you're doing it as safe as possible. So making sure that you're putting the flat side of the vegetable that you're cutting on the board so that it's more stable. Just cut a few slices through horizontally, and then you cut through vertically, not all the way to the end. I've left the root end on to keep all of the slices together. Keep your fingers and your thumbs out of the way. And then when you slice through this way, then you're going to have pretty nice dice. Just throw out that end. We're going to heat up our pan. Throw in a little bit of oil just to get things started. Cook this over medium heat. We're going to cook our onions for about 4 to 6 minutes, just until they're mostly cooked through, translucent. Add a pinch of salt. So while your onions are cooking, this is a good time to prep the vegetables and things that you want to put on top of your nachos. I've got some frozen corn, black beans, some green olives. I'm going to give those a little chop. I've got orange pepper, and we've got onions in this mixture, but you could add in some more raw onion. I have tomatoes here, and I'm going to make a fresh salsa to put on top of the nachos once they come out of the oven. You can take the time to grate the cheese while this is going. So we need to make sure that we're cooking the onions and adding the pork, and the pork needs to be fully cooked before you put it into the oven. It's a very important step because what you're doing with the oven is just melting the cheese, basically, kind of getting all of those things bubbly, and some of the chips will get toasted, but you're not cooking anything. You're not cooking the meat. You want to make sure that that's fully cooked before you throw it onto the nachos. I'm just going to give some of these olives a chop. So again, this is based on your preferences, what you and your family like to have on your nachos. It's fun to be a little bit creative, especially when you involve your kids. They might like to put some weird things on top of their nachos, and you could either do separate trays for everybody, or you could divide up your baking sheet into like 2 or 4 sections, and then get your kids to throw the toppings they like onto their section. You could even have like a fun contest between the family members whose weird nachos turned out the best, and you'd sample everybody's. Grate my cheese. Depending on the age of your child, you can have them do the grating of the cheese. I think most kids like to get involved, especially when it involves things that they can eat at the same time. And the cheeses that I'm using are a blend of Old Cheddar and Monterey Jack. But you can use whatever cheese you like. Something melty, something tasty. So mozzarella is very melty cheese, but it doesn't have a whole lot of flavor. So you might want to add in a cheddar or something like that, just to have something that'll brown nicely. Okay, there's our massive pile of cheese. Okay, our onions are looking nice, cooked. They're getting a little bit browned, so I'm just gonna send them off to one side of the pan and add the ground pork. You don't have to take the temperature of your cooked ground pork or ground beef or ground chicken or turkey or whatever it is that you use. All you want to do is just make sure you're cooking out all of that pink color, and that's a pretty good indication that it's cooked through. I'm just kind of tossing it and chopping it up at the same time. So the more you kind of break up these big pieces, the quicker it will cook. This recipe is like the nachos, loaded nachos recipe with meat and all of the fixings. But if you didn't want to have meat, you definitely don't need to have that. It's just, this is kind of like the meal version of nachos. I think we've got lots of nice vegetables to pair with it, but you could also have a salad on the side, or a bowl of soup would be nice. Today, this is going to be a Saturday lunch for the family. While your pork is cooking, you can finish getting your toppings assembled. Keep an eye on this at the same time, so don't go far away. I'm going to put my first layer of chips down. I've got these restaurant style chips. You don't want to get anything too thin and light because they won't hold up to all of the toppings that we're putting on. So spread out a thin layer of chips on the bottom. And put the toppings that you like, not all of them because we're going to do this in layers, almost like a lasagna. So just like a couple little toppings here. And the reason I like to do it in layers is because nobody likes getting a naked chip that's at the bottom, hidden underneath a mountain of toppings. And that's all that's left is naked chips. So you do it in layers and make sure everything gets covered. We're waiting for our pork to finish cooking. And then we'll top the nachos with some of our pork mixture. If you find that this is too much ground pork for you to put on top of your nachos, it saves very well cooked for about 5 to 7 days in the refrigerator in a container. Just get it into the fridge right away, and then you can use it. You can add it to maybe a batch of chili, or you can reheat them and make tacos just with a wrap or something like that. So we don't want all of the liquid. There isn't actually a whole lot of liquid left in the pan, but if you do find that there's liquid in the bottom of the pan once the pork is cooked, you'll want to drain off as much as you can because you don't want to make your chips soggy, or if you have a slotted spoon or something, just to pull the pork out with a slotted spoon. Just leave the juices in the pan. And if there's a lot of fat, you probably don't want to dump that down the sink either. So make sure you're going to pour it off into a container or a bowl, and you can save the fat later for cooking with as well. Okay, our pork is looking good. It looks like all of the pink is gone, so that means it's cooked. It's nice and crumbly, so the texture definitely changes once you cook it as well. I'm just going to spoon some of this mixture on top of the nachos, and then we're going to do a layer of cheese. That's going to be the glue, and then we're going to do another layer of chips and all of the toppings that you like. Ooh, this is smelling so good. And don't be shy with the cheese. great. Layer number 2. You want to try a vegetarian version, you could do refried beans on top. That would be really good. Or whole beans. Crumbled tofu seasoned with the spice blend as well would be nice. Getting very hungry. I've had pickled jalapenos if you like spice. It's also really good on your nachos. What else? Garlic? Garlic would be great. Okay. Here we go again. Corn. I'm just doing a little bit of a heavier layer of toppings on this one because I did more chips on this second layer. The rest of our cheese. Our oven is preheated to 425 degrees. Pop that in the middle rack. And you're really just going to bake it until the cheese is golden and bubbly. Probably 10 to 15 minutes. And while you're waiting for that to cook, you can make your fresh salsa or just some toppings that you want to throw on fresh. Some tomatoes, you can put on some avocado. My avocado isn't fully ripe right now, so I'm not going to use it, but one good way to test it is to check the stem end. So if there's a little stem there, you pull it out, and if it's green, it's a good indication that it's not overripe. And then if you can push your thumb in gently and it gives, that's a good indication that it's also perfectly ripe. If you open it up and it's brown inside, definitely don't eat it. But I was going to make a fresh salsa with tomatoes, lime juice, jalapeno, and you could do red onion, green onion, white onion. I think I'm going to do the green onion just a little bit, and some cilantro if you like. Hungry? Okay, that looks pretty good to me. You ready? Okay, we're gonna have a look at our nachos. I think they're probably done. Have a look. They're nice and golden and bubbly on top. Some of the chips are starting to get a little bit toasty. We'll pull it out. Nice. Sizzling away. Here we go. got my fresh mix. I just threw in some of the rest of the toppings that I had, the raw red pepper and some black beans just into the mix, and lots of lime juice. I think it's nice to have that fresh component. Just kind of drop it down on top. You could get some sour cream on the side. If you didn't want to make a fresh salsa, you can buy the store-bought, but just check the label because they often have a lot of added ingredients that you don't need, including sugar, which might surprise you. There's quite a bit of sugar in jarred salsa. That's why I like to make my own. Plus, I like the fresh taste of it. Okay, I do have a guest in my kitchen today. He's behind the camera. Derek is going to come over and eat some nachos with me.